Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Al Womble, and thank you for joining New Frontier Action for another wonderful town hall. Be sure you look us up at newfrontieraction.com or check us out on Facebook. And I'm really excited because tonight I get to introduce and talk to a man who's done so much here in the state of Iowa. Not only has he done tremendous things in Iowa City, but he's leading some new efforts that I want to talk to him about tonight when it comes to police reform and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So before I go on too long, please let me introduce to you the man voted most handsome mayor in the state of Iowa, Mayor Bruce Teague. Mayor, thank you for joining us.
Super happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely, absolutely. So today we're going to talk about, like I said, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, some of the different things that you guys are working on as far as police reform there in Iowa City. So first, I want to ask you, with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that you guys have developed, how was that, first developed, and how have you selected the different members who are a part of that particular commission?
Well, we know about George Floyd and how the city, our city, really came together to talk about systemic racism and how to end it. And so our council got together, and there was definitely community coming forth and making some demands for change. And our council came together, and we instituted a 17-point where we were going to really dive into making a change in our city. And one of the things was the development of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which in December that commission was appointed, and they've been doing work ever since then. There's a lot happening within the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a lot of things that they want to be that they're going to be doing. One is really spelling out how they're going to spend $1 million, which council had allocated for them to really do some work when it comes down to systemic racism and creation of programs, or you can do some art with it. And so looking forward to hearing their budget here soon.
Awesome, awesome. And so when it comes to the different members, you have, what kind of mix do you have on the council there?
Quite interesting enough, we typically our commissioners have to be in Iowa City resident, but we expounded and allowed people that live in Johnson County to also be a part of it, should we feel that that was the most appropriate thing to do. So most of the commissioners are from Iowa City, and ironically, I believe it's a commission of 9, and all but one that I'm aware of identify as a BIPOC individual. So it's a very rare opportunity where we see majority BIPOC individuals serving in any capacity of the city at this current time.
That is very excellent to hear. Now, Iowa City is the home of the University of Iowa and University of Iowa hospitals, two very large entities. How have they interacted with, or what have they done as far as being a part of that commission, or lending a voice to that commission?
So when you talk about Iowa City, you also talk about the University of Iowa, because we're intertwined. No matter how much we identify how different we are when it comes down to the operations, because certainly the city of Iowa City does not operate or have any reign over what the University of Iowa does, but we really do work in close collaboration. So certainly the University of Iowa is well aware of this Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There's always youth and university affiliates that are a part of the commission in some way or another, either they're faculty or student. There are some that are faculty and students a part of the commission, but I really believe that throughout all of this, the university is also looking at their operations and I understand that we'll be getting some recommendations about even their police force. There will be 3 recommendations that will be coming forth, and they'll be making a decision on which one that they want for their University of Iowa enforcement. So I think we're all looking at it within our own umbrellas, but also we realize that whatever their decisions are for their law enforcement also does impact our law enforcement, because whatever they decide, we may have to adjust our operations to support their needs.
Now, obviously, over this past year and over the past summer, we saw a lot of activity, by the youth. They've done, a tremendous amount of work, really standing up for racial equality and social justice. How has the Truth and Reconciliation kind of interacted with the youth? And, what sorts of input are they giving on the commission itself?
I believe that the energy of the youth is very powerful. I always have, from the beginning, really thanked the youth that have come forth to really pressure the city to say, we want change and we want it now. And we would not be where we are today without that energy and that pressure. And with that, what I've always admonished about them is that their ideas, they do present ideas, but they also are continuing even today. We're, I don't even know, 8 months in after the death of George Floyd and some of the things that we've done, and they're still present and they're making their voice heard. One of the things that is happening is, trying to figure out on the Truth and Reconciliation, the vibe, how do they vibe together, and how do they really come together to figure out what they want to do collectively as a commission, and also some of the things that have been tasked by the city council. I think they're really getting their vibe, trying to figure it out, and so I'm optimistic that we'll get to a place where they're just, off to the races. Certainly the voices, the young voices are present, as well as some of the other people within our community are really reaching out, not only to that commission, but also to council, to make sure that we're staying on task with Black Lives Matter, with the end to systemic racism. And I'm so happy that Iowa City is, like our commissioners, as well as our counselors, are really, really dedicated to authentic and real change.
That is excellent to hear. Just to remind folks, once again, this is New Frontier Action. Check us out at newfrontieraction.com, or check us out on our Facebook page. That way you get to see beautiful people like Mayor Bruce Teague and my giant pumpkin-like head. So you pay attention to that. Ask that I'd have is, we also talk about, there are many different aspects to people's lives. There's school, there's local government. I'm also wondering about local businesses. Have they interacted with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Are they going to be part of the different, because I know we talked about, gathering different stories from people about things that happened. What sorts of interactions do you find there between the commission and, your local businesses?
Well, you're talking about some of the fact finding and the truth telling. That's going to be coming up within the commission, where they reach out to various individuals as well as community members, including businesses, the University of Iowa. So we will get to interacting with them. Right now, it really is at the commissioner's level, where they're trying to establish, one, they just picked out their facilitator. And so just working out some contractual things there as with the commissioners and that facilitator, and then that'll come before council. So they're still in their infancy stages, but there will be opportunity for businesses to come forth. Now, what I will say is that I'm not exactly sure what the interactions have been with this commission, but with the council, we've had businesses literally be a part of some early on speak up, speak out events, is what we called it, where when George Floyd had, he had just died, we had 3 events in parks in Iowa City where we were socially distanced, because that was very important. But people came out to tell their truth, to tell their stories, people from the community. And one thing we intentionally did, oftentimes in Iowa City, we have every event downtown Iowa City. Every event, well, a lot of events. I don't want to exaggerate, but a lot of events downtown on our beautiful old Capitol grounds. That we have a lot of events down there. But what we did was we actually took the events where a lot of individuals that have those stories, and we took it to those communities, and people came out to tell their stories. So that was very important, that we went to communities where a lot of individuals that are a part of the Black and Brown community live, and we allowed space for them to tell their stories. And people from the community, especially the business community, I cannot begin to tell you how many people reached out to say, I knew there were some issues, but I just didn't know what it's been like for Black people within our community and within our nation. I just had no idea. And they were ready to listen and to learn what roles can they play to end systemic racism.
Well, hopefully that's going to see, a change, because when we talk about systemic racism, there are that this commission can address, education being, a big one that people face every single day. Local government. Do I have a voice on the council? Is that being reflected by the actions of the council?
Yes.
And then also within the business community itself. How is this possibly going to change, hiring practices? How is this possibly going to change, messaging? And have you seen, since, you guys have gathered some of those stories so far, have you identified any changes that have, come about that have been productive in that area?
Absolutely. One of the most recent changes is, it used to be called the University of Iowa Credit Union, the Credit Union Bank. It's now called Green State Bank. They actually have, I'll call it, because I don't have the terminology up before me, but they have funding available to really focus in on the BIPOC community. And as we know that many people within that are Black, I'll talk about Black people for a minute, sometimes their credit score may not be right, and they try to go get a loan, and they have some barriers there. Or people have taken advantage of not only Black people, but when you go to get a mortgage, your interest rate is higher than someone else that may even have the same credit score as you, or you're denied for whatever the reasons are. Some valid, right? When we're living in a world that you have a FICO score and all that other stuff, but sometimes those are not fully reflective of the person's ability to really acquire that loan that they're seeking. And so University of Green State has this new program, which I'm very excited about. I have to call and learn more about it. But they really do have, from what I'm seeing, this is one example of a business that is trying their best to reach out to those often denied within the banking world. Of course, there's others. Community Foundation, the Johnson County Community Foundation, they've opened up some of their grant funding. They had a round where they oversaw money that was for the BIPOC community, and we're seeing that happening throughout our city, where people are really having these conversations about what is equity versus equality, but how can they be equitable in how they give out some of their funds. And so I am really, honestly, Iowa City is a great place to live, especially when it comes down to the business community taking just a pause, and they heard us this summer. I'm Black, so I said they heard us this
Mm-hmm.
summer, and they are really responding to trying to learn, because it's still a learning process, trying to do whatever they can to learn, and to also to respond appropriately with equitable things within our community for those that really need it.
Excellent. Now, what is your hope? You know, you helped put this together. You know, what is your final hope for this Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and how that is going to affect local government right there in Iowa City?
Honestly, I believe that the hope is for people to feel free to come and tell their story safely. For all of us that are a part of that the entire community actually listen to the truths that are coming forth, and for us to respond honestly in ways that might be a little uncomfortable, might be a little what some might call extreme, but in order for us to really get to the reconciliation and to the healing that needs to be done, we have to go through this truth telling. We have to go through the stories. One of the things that so we're talking about truth and reconciliation, but there are some more things I want to talk about that the City Council has done. One is we have a new holiday in our community. Juneteenth is now a new holiday for the city of Iowa City. That's huge. That is huge. I mean, not to say that we're patting ourselves on the back because that's a holiday, but that is a huge step in the commitment that our city looked at some of our values and wanted to acknowledge that Juneteenth is pivotal in our country's history and is pivotal in the statement that we want to make here within our community to recognize it as a holiday. I'm super proud of that.
That's excellent. That's excellent. You know, I'd also hope that, when, because I've been a part of certain commissions before, we make recommendations and then we hand that over to city government. And, when it comes to what recommendations that commission has, how do you feel that the city government is going to respond to that? Because you have a pretty favorable city government there in Iowa City, but I'd love to be able to see the Truth and Reconciliation Commission come to you with suggestions and the city said, yep, we've got to do these things.
And that is what now that's my hope, is that we have these collective bodies, collective voices that are really majority from the BIPOC community. And so they have lived experience themselves, potentially, some may not, but they have lived experience themselves. And they also know people that have experiences of, going through a racist, either a program that has systemic racism in it, or someone that have been overtly racist towards them. So I'm hopeful that this commission work, just like you mentioned, they'll hand us over their, all of their work and say, council, these are our recommendations, because council has to approve some things, because we have to approve some things. And that's my real hope, is that these collective minds, which there's some variant ideas and thought processes, where I know they'll come together and figure out how can they best, work through some of those to come to an agreement on what they believe is the best situation for our city, and submit that to council. And my hope is that council just says, absolutely, we're 100% on board, fully committed. And that is my hope.
Well, that sounds excellent. I look forward to that day, and I'd love to be in Iowa City when that day comes around, and just kind of either join by Zoom or sit in the city council and watch that day happen.
Yes.
I'm excited to talk to you about another question or another program that you guys have got going. Is that there's something called let me see here, the preliminary plan to restructure the police towards community policing. And now that is a mouthful.
It
Um,
is a mouthful.
but I want you to talk a little bit, once again about how that developed, and what are some of your thought processes as far as how this needs to proceed.
So George Floyd died at the hand of a police officer. And of course, during the summer, a lot of the protest was specifically, the majority of the protests spoke out against law enforcement. They were calling the many incidences that have happened throughout our nation where Black people died at the hands of law enforcement without any real reason or cause. And so that's what, the anger and the frustration, and I was out there as well, very
Mhm.
upset, and letting my voice be heard that this is not okay, and we want change, and we want change now. And so from all of that, really comes for Iowa City to look at our police department and to envision how we want to restructure our police. So a part of the 17 points that we had within our resolution was to look at not only the not only to create the TRC and to also claim the city holiday for Juneteenth, but was to also look at restructuring of the police. So council tasked our city manager's office to really come forth with some recommendations to the council on how we can move forward with that. Now, there had been various things that led up to that report. We had some socially distanced community opportunities for people to come together and talk about how they envision, the police. And we had some great hard conversations by community members, but they came to these and listening sessions is what we call them, and people presented. They had great presentations and talked about what they would like to see within the police department, the changes they wanted. One of the big changes is, and you may have heard about this,
Mhm.
that's happening throughout the nation, and that is mental health professionals being involved or even replacing some of the 911 calls that happen in the community. Have you heard about some of the programs across the nation when we're talking about mental health professionals?
Yeah, I have, and that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you later. Is what different programs have you guys partnered with? How is that partnership going? Because I think that's one of the key things when we look at people when they say, defund the police. It's really restructure. It's the fact that when we talk about defund the police, we're talking about taking some of those resources and putting them towards things that are essential to the community, like mental health response to certain incidents, like food assistance, like other things.
Yes.
Tell me about how you guys have been able to work with some of those mental health agencies and officials to kind of, really restructure the police department.
Now, I think what I've learned about that definition of defund the police, that does mean different things to different people. I would agree
Mhm.
that the majority of the people um, would understanding of defund the police is more to um, reallocate funding um, from the police budget to doing some of those community policing type activities, which would include mental health professionals, being involved with with calls that really just don't warrant a police officer, and also programs that will help um, repeat offenders that have well, not repeat offenders, I'm sorry, but people that have been uh, repeatedly a part of the criminal justice system, try to figure out what are some of the things that they're lacking. As you mentioned, is it housing? Is it food? Try to figure out some of those things that they're lacking, and allocate some funding to prevent, not just respond, but to prevent some of those unfortunate things that happen to people. So in our community, we certainly have started the conversations, which was started by the community about mental health professionals. We have 2 new things that have come forth when it relates to having more community policing. One of the things that we just approved was having a mental health liaison, is what I'm going to call it, for the general public, where an outside agency hires this mental health professional, which they have many mental health professionals, and they will place this individual in our police department. Now, I'm going to stop there because I know that there are some people that say, you're going to put a mental health professional in the police department. Why is that? So currently, the way that our 911 calls come in, someone calls and they say, "Hey, I need assistance," and so the Johnson County Emergency Management System handles all of our 911 calls. So their protocol right now for anyone in the county is to call the 911, to call the law enforcement for whatever that jurisdiction is, and have them go out. Our city police have to respond to all 911 calls that come in through the emergency management system through Johnson County. So what this does is, since right now this is the way it is, it allows an opportunity for us to, hear what's happening with that call. And if that doesn't seem like it really requires, solely a sworn officer, where someone is, got a gun and all that other stuff, then the mental health professional can go out on that call. The police will ensure that it's a safe space for that mental health professional to make the interactions. What I like to see this as is a step towards the big picture, which I'm hoping for, and that is community policing, having a more robust community policing that involves the mental health professionals. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome here our Director of Partnerships here at New Frontier Action, Reverend Rob Johnson, who only bald head look as smooth as mine. So, Reverend Rob, I know that you and Mayor Teague have been friends for quite some time. Thank you for joining us.
That's my guy. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Hey, look, that's my guy. I had to jump on here, man. After he joined the roast for my birthday and got me, I had to jump on here, man. Brother up here looking good with his black turtleneck on with the silver link. I see you. I see you.
Gotta represent.
Man. Well, hey, man, Al is doing a magnificent job, and you're killing it. As always, huge shout out to you, Mayor Bruce. I wanted to just jump in real quick because I love that segment on the community policing, and just remind everybody that you're on the ballot in November, and that our team will be coming down to Iowa City to help you. We know that it's COVID. We know we will take all precautions, but we will do it the same way we did during the presidential election, and we will hit the streets with you, and we will be walking the streets with you, and that we got your back. And so I am just super excited. You getting shout outs from the Queen herself, Renee Hartman, elected city councilwoman from West Des Moines. She's shouting you out. The other mayors are shouting you out. And so, and we're just proud of the work that you're doing. And I'm just happy that I can not only know you as the mayor, but I can call you friend and family as well. And so I just wanted to let everybody know we got your back in November, and we need them to have your back in November as well.
I appreciate that. And again, this is, we're still in COVID, but there's a lot of work to be done. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is that city work, it has so much potential to make changes in everyday life.
Yep.
And you don't have to be mayor. You don't have to be a city councilor. there are boards and commissions, just like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that really does influence the decisions of the policymakers. And so that's where I want to encourage everybody that if you really want to be a part of your local government, there are ways where you can send an email, come to a meeting, let your voice be heard. But there's also work to be done in boards and commissions, and it's important work. It's pivotal work. It's work that, we're going to get a lot of, we're going to be told, we're going to be recommended of how to spend $1 million in real changes that will create educational opportunities for people within our community on systemic racism, ending it. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And I hope that people really do get that their voice does matter. It really does. And you can share your voice loud like Reverend Rob Johnson and Al in various ways.
Well, hey, I'm gonna hop off. I'm gonna let y'all two finish it up, but I couldn't just sit back and you my man 50 grand, and I had to jump in and say hello and just let everybody know. So hey, salute to you, salute to the good Al Womble, and I'll see y'all soon. Take care.
Good seeing you.
Thank you for joining us, Reverend Rob. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I remember this past summer, us walking through certain parts of the community and you out talking with people, shaking hands, letting them know about the Juneteenth event, Juneteenth event that was coming up. And I also remember you out there not only just talking to some of those folks in the community, but also dancing on one woman's driveway with her that day. So when people talk about, local government being involved, Mayor Teague, you are definitely involved. And I love to see that.
I mean, how can you be there and you hear some house music and you're from Chicago and not get down with it? Yeah, I mean, come on now.
Absolutely. I mean, I had more fun walking with you on that day. And, when we talk about, local government really affecting, your life, and I have to, give one more shout out here to West Des Moines City Councilwoman Renee Hardman. I have had meetings from my own neighborhood in my driveway with Renee Hardman, who came to respond to some of the concerns that were in my neighborhood. And, I just don't think people understand how important it is, as you just said, to be involved in that local government. If you have a concern with, the police, if you have a concern with, things that are going on as far as local businesses, your local schools, that's where you have to reach out and be involved. And, what sort of things are you guys doing? I want to get back to the policing here in just a minute. But, what are some of the things that you guys are doing to help that neighborhood that you and I walk through for those people to get involved in local government?
Making space for their voice, which the space had already been there, but actually trying to provide knowledge as to how that voice can be heard. We've had an uptick in interactions with government since June, since the June event, because of reaching out. That walk has really, we were giving out cards and telling people about a lot of stuff, right? We had good conversations. I mean, it was great. But though a lot of those relationships turned into activism, there's that part of one of the parts of town where we were at is called the South District. And we have Angie Jordan that is doing a lot of great things as the board chair of the South District Neighborhood Association. And they are doing their work continues. They're talking about creating more businesses and women businesses, because that's important, more BIPOC businesses. And it is phenomenal what has happened within our community just in the most recent months. I think COVID has allowed people to, some time to think about how could I contribute, and allow people to have a little time to contribute. And Zoom has really presented an opportunity for people to get engaged. And so we're just seeing a lot more involvement from people that are really affected by some of the policies that have been in place within our community when it comes down to the suppression of Black and brown folks.
Yeah, I just, I try with Reverend Rob and with many others to try to get out there in the community and really encourage people to be involved. But, I love people like, yourself and Ray Hardman and other leaders, who get out there and actually do it. But I did want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, I think you knew my energy was great when I go to door knocking. I'm ready to go. You got to really tell me it's time to go, Mayor.
I think we did that night. I think we were like, "Hey, I'm hungry, man."
I'll go to 9 or 10 o'clock. I'll go to 9 or 10 o'clock. People be coming to the door sleepy-eyed in their nightclothes.
No, that was a good time. But I was going to ask you, when you talk about this police reform that you were doing, there's a lot of components to it that sound great. How has the Iowa City Police Department responded to some of these proposed changes and actions and things that you guys are doing?
I think there's been some transitions for our police department. So certainly we had the events where I'm going to say some voices in the community was saying, away with the police. We don't want police. And I think that's where the council was in a position where we really needed to just be silent and listen to all of the voices of our community. And I think during that time, of course, I know that our police officers were listening, and they were trying to be objective and just listen. But I know that it was a little challenging because there are some officers that say, "Hey, I work my butt off," and so, to do right by all people. And I think a part of the truth of people telling their stories is sometimes we're not even aware of some of the things that the system of policing has in place that makes Black and brown folks feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think once people got beyond just some of their hurt or whatever, they began to listen to those stories. Now we're at the point of, the police, this came from the city manager's office. And believe it or not, even prior to that, the police were coming out and saying, these changes we want. We've been talking about some of these changes. We don't want to go to a place where we know our presence causes a problem with the individual that's in a mental crisis. We shouldn't be responding to that. So, council, we welcome you all to figure this out because we shouldn't respond to that. There's other things when we're talking about court orders and taking people, dragging them in a way, into the for treatment at a mental health facility.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things they don't need to be a part of. And so, a lot of the changes that have been proposed, some fashion or another, these have been conversations within the police department, not all, but some of the changes that they even question themselves. Why do we need to do this? And when you're talking about the disproportionate interactions, that's something that we definitely have to look at. Iowa City has been looking at it for many years because we have a report that we hire an outside contractor to come in and look at all of the stops, look at let's find out which officer is doing the stop. We're finding out we know what side of town they're on. So we've been looking at this for years to make changes within our police department. And we're just going to continue on that work and making those real, true changes within the police department. So I really believe our police, I mean, I talk to them all the time. I talked to them before the George Floyd. I have relationships with our police department. And they really do. They want change. They want real change that will work for our community.
That is fantastic to hear. I mean, that's the way the process should work. Local government decides they are going to listen to the community, and those individuals who are part of the system, need to realize it's the system itself that is faulty. Do not take this personally as an individual. The system itself is faulty, and we're here to repair that. And that, in this case, police responded like, we like these changes. These changes are going to be better for us in our job. So, I congratulate you on that, because, that is tremendous. And I'm going to keep in contact with you, over this to see how maybe we can, encourage other communities to do this as well. Honestly, your work there in Iowa City is groundbreaking.
I would agree. I think it is groundbreaking. And not that we want to be, that pivotal moment for a lot of people in our community, because I just hope they get it. But if they need to, step back and look at Iowa City, what we're doing, I really believe that our changes won't be seen as progressive. They will be seen as necessary and the right thing to do. And that's where I'm really hopeful when it comes down to other communities looking at us and seeing what we're doing. I'm very proud of Iowa City. I love Iowa City. I've been here 28 years.
Oh my.
Yeah, 28 years, and I'm not going anywhere soon, except I tell anybody I will become a snowbird in a heartbeat if I can afford it, and leave for the winter and come back in the spring and the summer.
I think it's all of us, Mayor. I mean, right now, when I take a look, at some of the places down in Florida and other spots, I'm like, why, dear God, am I in a place where it is almost negative 30 degrees?
I know.
Country south of here that we can get to that isn't going to be this bad.
Yes. Sound like we both could use a little mind help here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, self-care, I'm telling you, it is real.
Yes.
And I love what you talked about there. What we're seeing here, this change, it's not left, it's not right, it's forward. It is the necessary and the right thing to do. And I only hope, that the work that you guys have done there in Iowa City is able to be duplicated throughout the state of Iowa. And sorry, go ahead, Mayor. I apologize.
No. I'm agreeing with you. I think we're seeing some things coming through legislation now, where where defunding the police or decreasing your police budget wouldn't be allowed. It wouldn't be allowed. And so some of the questions that I have, related to that, is you really need to know first what is in each individual police budget, because all police budgets are not the same. Here in Iowa City, as we were beginning our conversations, it became very apparent that our animal shelter, that budget is embedded under the police umbrella budget. Now, if we wanted to remove, because I believe that shouldn't be in the police budget, potentially, right? But if we wanted to move that out, then that will be seen as into a different, maybe a department of itself. Then that will be seen as decreasing the police budget. So that's happening at the state right now. And regardless of what people think about police and defunding and all that other stuff, my argument there is that's taking away local control. One size don't fit all. And so if I decrease my police budget, how do you know that wasn't a program that ended? How do you know? So that's where local control, this is just one example of local control. We need that as a community.
No, I absolutely agree. There's another mayor just to the north of you in Waterloo who also, he and I have had discussions about, local control and the state attempting to affect it. But I just want to remind folks once again, this is New Frontier Action. Check us out at our website, newfrontieraction.com, and on Facebook, as well as Instagram and Twitter. But, you know, Mayor Teague, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Obviously, this is a conversation, you know, that we could revisit again and again, and I certainly hope to, you know, as we move on throughout the year, come back and discuss some of these topics, see how it's progressed. And, you know, I look forward to visiting with you again. But before we go, do you have any, you know, closing statements that you'd like to share with us about some of the things you guys are doing in Iowa City, or about local government itself?
Well, I want to say Happy Black History Month. So there's definitely a lot of programs happening here in Iowa City, but across the nation. And so as we're in this last week of Black History Month, I encourage people to do whatever they can to be a participant in something virtually. Most things are virtual. And I also want to say thank you to you, Al, for allowing me to come here today, and for New Frontier Action for allowing me this opportunity to talk about something that is really important and within our entire state, but also for our nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, remember, you know, if you love programs like this, with us talking with Mayor Bruce Teague, please make sure that you support us at newfrontieraction.com. You know, we are trying to make sure that we get out throughout the entire state to work on those things which are important to our community. And as you know, Mayor Bruce Teague talked about, it's not left, it's not right, it's forward. It's working on those things that are necessary because they're right. So please make sure that you donate to newfrontieraction.com so that we can keep this up. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you being here to see me, the Shrek of the organization with my giant pumpkin-like head, and our beautiful mayor, Mayor Teague. I hope to see you all again next time, and have a great night.